I really want off this wild ride. Like, if I could, like, shift into a different timeline, like, please, as soon as possible. So, we just had a general election, and as you all know, in this cursed timeline, Trump won. So, let's go over a general demographic breakdown. As we already know, he won the popular vote this time, as well as the electoral college. But we're breaking it down by race. Essentially, Kamala won black voters, and she lost white voters, with a general even split between Asian and Hispanic and Latino voters. Um, let's talk about why I think that happened in particular, and I believe it's particularly Latino men, Hispanic Latino men that she lost votes with. Um, just because just because someone is not white does not mean there are not strong conservative elements in their culture or their community. What you have to realize for a lot of the Hispanic and Latino voters, in terms of the country they come from, they tend to be fleeing left wing or very extremely left wing governments. So you tend to get a selection bias of people coming to America. They tend to be right wing. I mean, from my understanding, with the Cuban community, at least for the first wave of Cuban immigrants that came over, they tended to be they were the right wing, very rich, individuals within that country, within that community. They came over to America trying to flee the communist government over there. There's also another element to this that is not really talked. Well, I've been hearing it a lot lately. And there's just this idea of being of whiteness, of trying to be white. And this is particular for the Latino Hispanic community, because what you have to realize uh, for this community is that they are a combination of African, indigenous, and what they like to identify with Spanish, um, in particular, right? And so, what you have to realize, the reason why the black community votes the way it does, and why the Hispanic community votes the way it does, is that in order for whiteness to work, white supremacy to work, there always has to be an outgroup. And at no point in the history of the black community have we been allowed to think that we can be white. We never been put under that delusion. So when other groups come in, from their native lands, and they come here, and they're saying, well, as long as you don't associate with that group, you don't identify with that group, we'll treat you good. And you have to realize that even if they're not given the same level of access as the white counterparts, it may be better than what they're getting in their native country. Because you got to realize that moving over to another country, sometimes across an ocean, that's a big step. That's a big step. Whether you are a billionaire or only got 2 cents in the pocket, right? And what you have to also realize is, in America, the way we portray our race relations is very white versus black. And what you have to realize is that a lot of these, especially for the Asian and Latino communities, when they go to these banks or these financial institutions and they need a loan to start their business, a loan to get their homes, who are they going in and facing, and facing most of the time, and creating these relationships with, right? It's 9 times out of 10 it's not going to be someone like me. It's not going to be a black person 9 times out of 10, right? So when someone like me says, hey, white supremacy, racism, blah blah blah, and they just remember that they got this check, they got this loan that's allowing them to start their own business in another country, it's a dichotomy, right? Now, with black conservatives, who I am now going to call silks. I'm not going to call silks going forward. So when I say silk, I'm talking about a black Republican. It's a vote for, just like for the 85, the 90, basically the 85% of the black community that votes for Democrat for survival. It's sort of the same thing for black Republicans. And you have to realize that for them, they're tired of just voting for survival. They want to, from their point of view, they are voting to thrive, not realizing that they're being spent. They're being used. They're learning that lesson right now with this current Trump administration. They just got used, right? And I think the reason why the black community had the loudest voice by the percentage of us and how we voted this election is because it goes back into white supremacy. We've never been allowed to be under any delusion that we could be a part of, that we could be white and therefore share inherently in sharing all the fruits and all that stuff that comes from that. And so, even though there are strong conservative elements within the black community, we never let that delude us into thinking that we could be part of that other side in significant numbers. I know some of you are going to be like, yeah, but it's 22, depending on the chart you're using, it's 22 to 8%. That's a large number. Let me put it like this. If Democrats had 85 seats in the Senate, and I see the low numbers are maybe 71 for black men, the lowest I've seen so far, and they had 71% of the House seats, right? 71% of the House seats, 85 of the seats in the Senate. We would be talking about a constitutional changes right now. And so it goes back into, I dare I say, anti-black behavior, where no matter what we do, accomplish, no matter how loud we talk, there's always an asterisk to the things we do. I started noticing it with Obama when everybody was talking about, oh, he's half white, he's this and that. But but down here in the South, that doesn't fly. We still go by one drop rule. No one down here is going to be like, oh, well, that light-skinned person is half black, so I'm going to treat like a white person. No. We are all lumped together. That's why when there's some aspect of the colorism discussion that like light skin and black skin go at each other, that just kind of flies through me, because you come down here in the South and you're going to get humble real quick. You're going to get humble real quick down here. But like I was saying earlier, a part of the reason why the Asian community and the Hispanic community, move closer to the Republican side is because they've been allowed some access to that, right? To that whiteness, to that idea of they're going to be accepted. Because the history of who's considered white, it has expanded over time. I came across, I don't know if it was a letter, what was the context of it, but I remember seeing something written by Benjamin Franklin where he was like, basically, he's like people from Germany are not considered white, right? And then you look at it today, and the white supremacists are taking their cues from German fascism. They're taking cues from German fascism. And so over time, in order to keep power, they just expanded it. There was a time the Irish weren't considered white. There was a time the Italians were not considered white. But in expanding that, they've been allowed to keep power. Right? And they never really forgot that distinction. Right? In America, we call it being a WASP, which is white Anglo-Saxon. White Anglo-Protestant. White Anglo-Saxon Protestant, right? Which conveniently includes, people of German extraction as well. But mostly it's can you tie your ancestry back to the Mayflower, right? To those original European settlers, in particular those from the British Isles. right? So another thing that goes past me, right, is this notion of class solidarity. I would like to remind my Democrats that some of our greatest leaders on the left have been class traitors. A lot of you don't even know that FDR was considered coming from an old money family. The Roosevelts are an old money family, that waspy society type deal. So yes, people crossing class lines have done great for America. So if you go into your groups and a rich person wants to come in and join in on the movement, let them. Let them. I'm not saying let them take over. I'm not saying give them an outside voice. Let them. Because when they get it and they get on our side, great things happen. So let's talk about, in my opinion, what's going on with the Democrats, and particularly with the progressives, right? Because I got to say, you fumbled the bag. There is no two ways about it. You fumbled the bag. Starting in 2016 election cycle, or maybe in the run up to that, I noticed the term identity politics being used, right? As a way to basically tell minorities to be quiet. All right, don't talk about your issues. And I think the crowning achievement of that for me personally was when a supposed Bernie supporter told me that black people need to wait their turn, and Bernie Sanders needs to fix white issues. As if we don't face, as if 90% of our issues don't cross over. Why can't he focus on both? You do realize that the presidency is not a one-man show. So, I have to admit, the effect it had on me, I didn't show up to the primaries. I didn't show up to the primaries in 2016 in Florida, where one of the places he needed to win in the primary cycle. I'll admit, Biden was probably at my second to last choice. Only person I ranked lower than Biden was Bloomberg. I went to 2020 as a Warren supporter. And I agree with the notion that she should have dropped out early. She kind of tainted for Bernie in 2020. I have to say it. And then now in this 2024 election. Now I would say I don't feel as upset. I don't think I'm necessarily stressing as much about it, because as those who have seen the video, I already, did the work, showing that Biden had one of the weakest, if not the weakest, presidential win in 2020, by historical standards. So Democrats were already vulnerable in 2024. The best time for Democrats to get ready for 2024 would have been for Biden to keep to the one-term pledge and let a primary play out. The second best chance, looking back, this is hindsight. The second best chance was to allow for a chaotic convention, release all of the delegates, and let them decide who's going to be on the ticket and go from there. Essentially putting Kamala, as much as I supported her, putting Kamala in the ticket like that was the third best option. The third best option. But I understand why Democrats did not want to do that, because they did that in 1968 with the 1968 election, right? Where LBJ is like, I'm not going to take nomination, I'm stepping out. They go to the convention. The delegates duke it out. They go with Humphrey, and Nixon wins. They didn't want to go into that chaos, right? And when Biden dropped out, I knew that's when we were in trouble. It wasn't a debate performance, right? Because Obama had his first debate performance was bad for his reelection, right? Though it was not as bad as people would say, compared to what Biden's first and I suppose only reelection debate was. I feel sorry for Kamala because essentially she became the fall person for this. She became the fall person for this in so many different ways. You have to realize that the vice president does not direct policy. The vice president only has 2 to 3 jobs. That's to break ties in the Senate. That's to take over the presidency if the sitting president is incapacitated, and whatever else the president gives them. Maybe they get a program or something like that. But officially, they only have really 2, which is be number 2 person. Wait to take the seat if needed, if called upon, and break the Senate ties. They're basically the Senate president or whatever it is. My biggest problem, I feel like the moment Democrats lost, regardless of if Biden did not run again or not, was when Hamas attacked Israel. And then Israel responded, and Israel did not hold back. Let's put it like that. That was the moment Democrats lost. Because just like in 1968, what was Democrats' biggest weakness? Foreign policy. Foreign policy. Great domestically, to horrible on foreign policy. It was the Vietnam War in 1968, and it was the Palestinian-Israeli conflict for us. The moment that attack happened, that was it. Because from my understanding of Biden, when he was a senator, was that he was more pro-Israel than the Israeli were. From my understanding, they had to tell him to calm it down. So the Biden that we have now as president, compared to how he used to be, has really, really toned down his support, right? And I think a part of the problem is that Kamala got tarred and feathered for his policies, right? And not only did she get tarred and feathered for his policies, she got tarred and feathered for essentially all of America's whole history with that region, right? As if she was the one that was constantly the one who was directing it for decades, right? And despite that, she did try to reach out to the community. I do remember she met with the Palestinian American community, try to reach out to them. I am aware that she shifted her whatever her stance was beforehand. She shifted to a more pro Palestinian policy stance, and they still said that she was a genocider. She still said that she was a genocider. And I think what pisses another thing, and it baffles my mind. I think at that point in the summer of 2024, the left had made up its mind. The left had made up its mind. Kamala or Biden could literally nuke Israel, and y'all still say, oh, they're enabled a genocide. They're Palestinian genociders. They could literally kick them out of NATO if I am correct about their membership in there. Take all of the weapons, and you'll still. I think we still would have punished them for whatever. One thing I've come to realize, and this is going back to the left and progressives, we have forgotten how to govern. We have forgotten how to govern. In terms of how Biden as the president has administrated his 4 years, he governed to the left of Obama, who himself governed to the left of Clinton. And so if you look at a long view of how our Democratic presidents have been governing, it has been a shift to the left, right? This is what we've been trying to tell Democrats. You need to move to the left, right? You know, an example of Biden moving to the left or bringing Democrats back to the left was when he attempted to essentially, institute some form of student debt relief. My understanding is the court said no, but did Biden stop? Did he say, well, look, the court said no? He kept it going, because just about every month I was getting articles about this group is getting relief, that group is getting relief, right? So that's why I don't understand why he did not win, why Democrats lost so much with the youth vote as much as they did, right? Like, they literally did a 4-year war with student loan debt to make college more affordable, so that when you go out and you graduate, or you don't, it happens. I had to do a second attempt at college myself, to get my two degrees, so that when you go out and you go out in the world, you're not being held back with student loan debt. And I know another thing he attempted to do was sort of deal with medical debt, because I remember, at least during his presidency, medical debt was not allowed on our credit. It was off my credit. Now, it may change with Biden. I mean, with Trump, but if it hasn't already. Another thing that I felt that was moving more to the left was his CHIPS Act, his Anti-Inflation Act. Right? One thing we were really against Democrats was we need to put guardrails on the free trade, on the international free trade within here in the U.S. Biden did that. He did that. All right? Because if we're going to tar Kamala for his international policies, then why not give her the credit too for the good he did do or attempted to do? Why just saddle her with the bad? But it's spilled milk at that point, right? Another problem I have with the left right now, well, not necessarily right now, but on election days, when I turned on the news, I see left figures attacking the Democrats, criticizing the Democrats. Meanwhile, I'm reading articles about the moderates and the moderate and the conservative factions. They're behind the scenes. They're getting their candidates ready for 2026 and 2028. They're getting their candidates ready for 2028. Where are my progressive? Where are my leftists? Where's my sock dems? Saying, okay, we finna start canvassing for these candidates who we think are going to get the policies we want out. I think another problem I want to criticize the Democrats for is I think Democrats have waited too late to start criticizing or start giving pushback to progressives, right? Because the prognosis in 2016 and 2020 was, do not criticize, do not push back against the left, against progressives, salt devs, or anything like that in any significant manner. So what you end up having is the progressives may say something out of pocket or whatever, and we just gotta take it on the chin, because in my experience is when I push back, right? When I push back, it's, oh, you're being mean, you're this, you're that, right? Because when I defended Kamala on her campaign stance on Israel and Gaza, I got called racist, I got called evil, I got called a genocider. Meanwhile, the person that got into who you helped, because I don't think one particular group is responsible for Trump winning, is a defeat by 1,000 paper cuts. It's a defeat by 1,000 paper cuts. But I'm trying to speak to the group that I feel more aligned towards. Right? I got called all those things. And for those people, I blocked you. Because at this point, how can I convince you? How do you convince, when you are convinced someone is a genocider, evil, there's nothing more that I can do. There's nothing more I can do in that argument. I'm to their eyes, I'm washed. I'm a washout. And I want to make this clear. I want to make this 110% clear. As a Kamala voter, my conscience is 1,000% clear. Because let me tell you something about as a minority. My family has been here since before Florida has even had statehood. I'm like an 8th or 9th generation Floridian or something like that. Anyway, sometimes the best option is harm reduction. Slavery was not ended overnight. It was a tit for tat in the political arena for decades before that. Same thing for civil rights, right? Tit for tat. We lost a lot, we gained some, right? A lot of people don't know that there were civil rights acts in the before it, basically the second half of the 19th century after the Civil War. Now, what ended up happening was the Supreme Court ended up striking them down, which is why the judicial branch is my least favorite branch of the government. I lay Jim Crow segregation and just the scar, the never healing scar on the Supreme Court, right? We had to refight for that, for those rights. We had to refight for that in the 80s because Reagan wanted to let those lapse. And let's go over to another subject while we talk about Reagan. A lot of people are mad because all these black rappers are coming out. All these hip hop artists are coming out as pro-Trump. That did not come out of nowhere. This person I'm about to talk about may not necessarily be the first to do this, the practice of sane washing conservatives is a decades-long practice. You can go online right now and you can see Michael Jackson taking photo ops with Ronald Reagan. All right? If you understand, let me give you examples of some of the things that Reagan did while he was president and while he was governor of California, president. The crack epidemic. All right? Something that he did in California as a governor that affected everybody. He changed the way colleges are funded, college tuition are funded. This current system, I'm going to load you up with debt. He got that rolling. He got that ball rolling. You know, people are talking about, oh, conservative policies are finally are finally hurting the people that vote for it. It's been hurting them. And one thing I have learned from speaking to an older Democrat who voted for Reagan in the 80s, when I asked him why did he do that, and it basically came down to the vibes. It wasn't policy. It wasn't tax code. It's because Reagan made them feel good. Because he vibe. He made, he vibed with the people, with the young people. Of course, they eventually moved back to the left, or moved to the left, once they realized that those policies were not good for their communities, or especially for farming communities or manufacturing towns, right? So, as I was saying earlier about black music figures washing conservatives, right? It goes back to the reason why the Hispanic and the Asian community, why they don't take the African American community as serious. Don't take white supremacy as serious, as a negative, as they should. Right? And what you have to realize is that for these artists, regardless of where they start, regardless of what type of music they do, dance, conscious, whatever, right? When they go and they join these big corps, these big music labels, who are they facing? Who are they speaking to? Who are they interacting with? They're interacting with white executives. And those white executives, because these artists are going to be making them a lot of money, they're going to love bomb them. And they've been getting these love bombs for decades. Now, it may have initially started as code switching, or I'm just gonna use this major label so I can get my bread in the whole factory. But eventually these artists, they have children, they have families, and then guess what? Those kids or those grandkids eventually go and form friendships with the executives' families and friends and whatnot. And this is how Trump comes in, right? Because you got to realize he's well connected, as you can see. He's well connected. He is like the 1980s personified in terms of the greed is good mantra. He is like the poster child of 1980s corporatism. That man, and so what you have to realize, that man has so many connections, right? Because what you have to realize with Trump, he had a problem in the 70s when he and his father were being sued for racial discrimination, right? And so he went on a reputation wash. Got seen when he went to the right he went to the right music festivals. He met with the right artists, the right photo ops. He got seen where he needed to be seen. So when you have the LGBT community, certain elements saying, oh no, he went to our pride event, he's actually for the LGBTQ community. That's why they show up at those events, so that they'll have somebody in that community vouching for them, adding doubt. So it goes from a reasonable doubt that they are whatever is or ism to, oh, well, maybe they turn over a new leaf. Maybe there's a chance, right? Because some people like to point out that Trump was a Democrat. My understanding of Trump is that he was briefly a Democrat. Let me verify that first. Let me check on that first. I don't want to lie on you. I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, he was a Republican. His let me put it like this. He spent more time as a conservative candidate than he has as a in the middle or liberal candidate. The man was basically trying to poke holes, trying to see where he could fit in. And well, he eventually found purchase with the Republican Party. Let's talk about another group that I am not that just washes over me, that just swooshes over me. And I'm talking about the people, talking about the Trump voters who thought that Trump policies were not going to affect them negatively. Right? The ones who thought DEI, who thought affirmative action, even though affirmative action is now dead, who thought DEI, affirmative action like policies and whatnot, healthcare and all, Obamacare and all this other stuff was only going to affect the African American community, the brown community, because despite the media trying to tell you like, hey, Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act is the same thing, it's for everybody, they still thought, oh, it's black people health insurance. So I kind of can't. It's hard for me to feel sympathy for these particular group of people who voted for me, who voted to hurt me, who thought, oh, I'm voting for Trump because he's gonna get at you. He's gonna punish you for having the audacity of wanting health care, for the audacity of wanting a fair shake at the job, the job hiring process when it comes to jobs. And by the way affirmative action had worked and DEI had worked, African Americans benefited the least. African Americans benefited the least from DEI and affirmative action. That's how it ended up panning out in the long term. And, an example of the community getting used, which is why I'm shocked they didn't overwhelmingly vote Democrat, was the Asian community, right? They got used as the poster child of, oh, this is why you should get rid of affirmative action. It's hurting the Asian community at college and university enrollment. And it's my understanding, after they got rid of affirmative action, Asian enrollment went down. Asian enrollment actually went down. What went up was legacy admissions. That's what they filled the gap with. Legacy admissions, which tends to benefit white people. Now, I will say this. I don't hate white people. I don't hate Hispanic people. I don't hate Asian people. I don't hate any group that voted for or against the Democrats whatsoever. In my particular city, it was an age thing. It was essentially, everybody did shift to the right a little bit, but essentially the 45 and up group voted for Trump. And what you have to understand about the 45 and up group, why they have so much power, is because statistically they are retired. They're either retired or they're part-timers. So guess what? They're not tired, and they statistically might be financially sound, so they can take a day off and go vote. And what you have to realize down here, and say in my city, in my state, people that tend to come down here and start in the 40s, really starting the 50s and up, they tend to vote. They tend to trend conservative because for them, they're in retirement mode. They don't have to worry about making all the money. They have all the money. What they're trying to do is they're trying to keep their investments, their retirement, their savings from getting hit by taxes. And which party is the anti-tax party? It's the Republicans, so they vote Republicans. Even if Republicans' vote is pushing policies to strip them of things like Medicare and whatever. But if you made enough money from retirement savings, I suppose you could just pay out of pocket. It's probably the mentality of some of them. Some of those folks. All right? So I don't think less of any of the communities mentioned here. Even the white community. I don't think any less of you whatsoever. Because at least in my city, it was by age. Now I'm not gonna go to a old white person and just like yell at them or nothing like that. It's like, I mean, I I'm a Democrat in the red state. We haven't had a Democratic governor since like the late '90s. So I'm used to being politically insignificant. Which brings us another problem I'm having with my leftists, with my progressives. So I officially joined the Democratic Party this year, or technically last year. And what I mean by that, I started attending the meetings and whatnot. Because my understanding, if you actually want to like change things internally, you gotta start going to these meetings. So the last meeting I went to, I got shown a list. I found a list. I believe we call it caucuses, right? Let me see if I can pull it up of what's in my area and why this pisses me off a little bit. Just a moment. I just want to make sure. This is a part of the issue. I just want to make sure. I'll get my facts straight. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. This being extra right now. I do not see a progressive or leftist caucus in my area, in my Democratic Party. This is why we end up with moderate to straight up conservative candidates. This is why we end up with conservative to moderate candidates, because we're not doing the groundwork. We're not doing the groundwork. We're almost just as bad as the Green Party, right? The Green Party shows up every 4 years like a ghost and then disappear after the election like a ghost. And I would have thought that we would have learned our lesson from 2016, not to even entertain them jokers. Because if you are serious about getting your policies, your stances out there, actually, implemented, you hit one of the major parties already existing, you form a wing, a caucus, or whatever, and you fight. That's how the Tea Party, now the MAGA movement, that's how they took over the Republican Party. They did not form another party. And if they did, it didn't last that long. And now they got a trifecta. And now when I mean a trifecta, not just a majority in the House, in the Senate, and the presidency, they also have control of the Supreme Court. They have control of the Supreme Court. So that is what that is. I'm pulling it up right now. I just want to make sure. I don't want to sit here and be like, yeah, no. Here we go. And I'll put all this I'm talking about, I'm going to put links down. So this is what we have in my city, in my county. We got Beaches Democratic Club, Duval County Democratic Black Caucus, Democratic Women's Information Network, Duval County Democratic Hispanic Caucus, Jacksonville Young Democrats, Duval County Democratic Senior Caucus, Duval Democratic Environmental Caucus. Where are my progressives? The closest you got is the Young Democrats and the Environmental Caucus. And I believe I signed up for that. I'm going to make sure in the future I'm part of that. Where is the groundwork? I live in one of the biggest cities by land area, if not the biggest city by land area, with over 1 million people here. Where are my progressives? Where are my fellow progressives? Where are my leftists, my sock dems? This is why we end up with the candidates we do. Because what ends up happening is, even if you do file the paperwork to run for office, you don't have the relationships. You don't have the relationships. You don't show up. They don't know who you are. But you got the filing fee. Okay, we got a candidate on there. And that goes to another discussion another problem that we have here in the Florida in the Democratic Party, especially here in Florida. For every dollar that we get, Republicans get $10 more. Get $10. We're getting spent 10-1. I think in Jacksonville it was like 400,000. I just accidentally came across it on the filing. In Jacksonville and Duval, it was like 400,000, and then the Republican Party had 4 million. We're getting spent 10-1. And I know some of you say you need to give up Florida, you need to come to a blue state, but my roots are here. My roots are here. It's very hard and it's not free. It's very hard and it's not free. So let's go to another side. Matter of fact, what I represent, which is the blue voter in red. Is another thing that pissed me off. So I watched Hassan's election coverage, right? And I want to say it was either Missouri or Kentucky, but he brought in a third party voter who's like, oh, I'm in a red state. It doesn't matter how I vote. Kamala's not going to win it either way. Democrats are not going to win it either way. I hate that defeatist attitude. If we had that defeatist attitude in Jacksonville, we would not be having a Democratic mayor right now. We would not have a Democratic mayor right now. Do you know how FDR was able to get the New Deal through, the Great Deal through? Because he had the numbers in the House and in the Senate. He didn't just walk in and it's like, oh, this and that, leave it, take it or leave it. He had massive majorities in the House and the Senate, and eventually, because members came and went, he eventually got the Supreme Court on his side. Now that is not our option right now, because obviously there's a 2-term limit. So we can't just re-elect the same guy 4 times or ladies 8 times. And then we're just gonna wait out the Supreme Court until we get them in ours. Now we could do that, but we have to consistently get Democrats into office. We can't have this Democrat gets 2 terms, then we got 1 term Republican, 1 term no. Because where it counts, as we can see, of this, for starting with the 2000s to now, these last 25 years, we still have a conservative court. And in this case, that conservative court has gone mask off. So, let's talk about what we can do. I'm sure there's more I can hit us about. Speaking of which, let's go back to this as well. You cannot call me things like a genocider, an evil person, and all these other things. Have a go at us, Democrats, liberals, or whatever political faction you're in, and you expect us to work with you. You can't. And I blame the Democrats because the politics was just letting them go off the handle, and they ended up taking us off the cliff back into Trump Valley. And it may in the fall this time may be fatal. And I think what we have to be careful of, that within the left, is that you have accelerationists, right? Which is if you just pull the country so far away like a slingshot that people will just go for your side in extreme high numbers, right? But I don't want there have to be a war for people to vote for progressive policies. for progressive politicians. So my focus as of right now, I want to focus local and statewide. That's what I'm doing. I want to focus local and statewide. Get on the groundwork. Get on the groundwork. I'm not, I'm not a famous Twitch streamer. I'm not famous at all. So I can't just sit there and catapult myself to the DNC and demand ABCD. So for me, I decided to move in what I like to call progressive reform politics. So I'm gonna show 8 amendments that I'm thinking of pushing in the state of Florida, and you can go from there. We can go from there. So the first idea, change amendment approval threshold to 55%. So in order for an amendment to pass in Florida to our state constitution, you have to it has to have 60% of the vote. And in my understanding, it needs to be 50% or 51%. All right. I want to bring it down to 55%. If I'm correct, if it was 55%, the marijuana and the women's bodily autonomy amendments would have passed. Number 2, change to ranked choice voting. We need to change the way we handle. I think we need a fundamental change in how we handle elections, because the biggest problem with third-party voting is that it's spoiling your vote, and it's not giving you the voice you think you are when you vote third party. Because what ends up happening is people end up marking you as just as bad. They see you, even though you say you're a leftist, you're all for this, they see you as a conservative in disguise. All right. Number 3, change the presidential vote to proportional, similar to Nebraska. All right. In Florida, it's all, when it comes presidential time, you get 50 plus 1. You get all our electoral votes. If I'm correct, it needs to be higher than that before, otherwise it automatically triggers a recount or something like that. But that is what that is. Number 4, changes to the amendment approval requirements must also meet the proposed changes as well as the current. So what I mean by that is, let's say an amendment comes through that says, oh, we're going to go from 60 to 80. Under number 4, not only does it have to meet the 60% threshold that's currently in place, it would also have to meet its own requirements to pass as well. Because to my understanding, the change that brought it to 60%, it didn't even get 60%. So by its own rules, it wouldn't have gone through. Number 5, automatic registration at 18, at the age of 18. Automatic registration. We got to make it easier for people to get registered to vote. Automatic, one way you can achieve it, hey, this might be a privacy rights issue. You obviously say, hey, you go to the higher schools or the private schools and say, hey, who's turning 18 by such and such? You work it out. 18 and they get registered. Maybe they get in the mail, say, hey, this is our proposed, this is based off their current information, their physical address and their age and whatnot, and their eligibility to vote. They get mailed a sample card. They can go and do the changes that are needed. So like let's say you're going to turn, I'm just drawing on at that point. Okay, number 6, House districts lines I really should cross this out. Because technically this has already passed, but this is one that I was considering. It's technically the case in Florida, I believe. The problem is enforcement. And its House district lines for state House and federal House must be drawn without consideration of the political affiliation of the population. There shouldn't be, I wanted to make it to where it's 70% Republican and 30% Democrat. You shouldn't be allowed to fix things in your favor in that manner. But my understanding, we already had something like that, something similar. So I wouldn't really push for something that's already the case. It's just an enforcement issue. Number 7, state holiday for Monday before, and Tuesday before Monday before, basically Monday, Tuesday, the Monday before, and Tuesday of the presidential general election. Again, it's not convenient to vote. You gotta take a day off, or you gotta go out, or you gotta wait after you get off work, and hopefully you're not. Hopefully you, the time you get off gives you enough time to get to your polling place. You gotta wait in those long lines, all right? Some people may have a night shift. They say we're doing it in the morning. Well, they might be exhausted because what if they had to work a night shift that time? I work night shift. Trust me, you don't get the time. You don't get the hours you think, the waking hours that you think you would normally get. And then number 8. Oh, I propose. Okay. Number 8. People may vote in the precinct not their own, but is mailed to the appropriate precinct for counting and tabulation. Basically, you can go into any polling station, vote, and if you are identified as a currently registered voter, right, and you're voting in a precinct or district that's not yours, it just simply gets mailed over. It just gets mailed over to the proper precinct for tabulation. And what this would do, this will cut out the whole we're cutting the polling places. Oh, okay. And now just go to one of the 10 polling places you got over in your district. That's what I'll do. So right now I'm just focusing on essentially structural change. That's where I'm moving towards. Now, if I would become an elected politician and there's a proposal for, say, marijuana, there's a proposal for healthcare, education, and something like that, I'll vote for it 100%. I will vote for it 100%. But that's not my focus right now. Now, I do have some ideas on a federal level, constitutional wise. Some changes are. I have an old video I did many years ago. The only thing I would change is I would add an equal rights amendment to it, because I let somebody, you know who you are, convince me that the Supreme Court says settle law. Look how that turned out. Roe v. Wade is gone. It's kaput. So I may link to the video, and what I may do is I may put up a updated version in the future, because I know this audio quality is terrible, but I know that audio quality of that Let's Change the Constitution video is horrible. So I may do an updated version and just add that in. But those are my general focus. And what I may do, and maybe I'm just attempting too much too fast, but what I will look into do is starting a progressive caucus here in Jacksonville in Duval County. That's what I may look into doing. Right? Because the work to change the party starts local. It starts on the ground. It starts on the groundwork. We are under threat of turning into the Green Party, except as a faction within the Democratic Party. So this is what I suggest for you guys, for everyone to do, if you can. I understand we have lives, we have busy lives, such and such. And I know this is going to be the most controversial. This is going to give me the most fight back. Join the Democratic Party. Step 2, attend the meetings. Now, I understand that it's hard for us to do physical all the time. Now, maybe this is just a privilege of being a Democrat in a big city, but they have Zoom options. You don't have to be physically there. All right. Look into that. Just simply type in your wherever you reside and then type in Democratic Party, and you can go from there. Another thing you can do that will have a stronger impact and a stronger immediate impact. Go to the city council meetings, your city or town or parish meetings, and not only go to those meetings, but when they ask people to come up and speak their opinions, speak your opinion. If your opinion is very long-winded, like this video, find out who your representative is in the city council and shoot them an email. Heck, may go snail mail. Make sure that your voice is heard. Give them a call. The next step, which is what I just went over a couple moments ago, look into state ballot initiatives. Look into changing things on a constitutional level at your state, like I'm looking to do. Californians are a little bit blunted because the way their state government is run, the legal culture there, the political culture there, and part of that is showing your fellow people, oh, we can make things fair, we can make things better. All right. It used to be that Florida was a red man with a blue heart. And then the most controversial, or second most controversial to joining the Dem Party, running for government yourself. There is a documentary called, I believe, Waiting for Superman, that went over like the education and whatnot, issues with the education system and whatnot. Right? And I think that turns set with me, and I think that's part of the problem right now with us on the left. We are waiting on somebody else to fix our problems. We're waiting on somebody else. We're waiting on basically the love child of Obama, LBJ, and Roosevelt to come forth with a little bit of Bernie Sanders mixed in the mix to come forth and save us. And I think that's part of why the left has had such a hard time getting such a foothold within the Democratic Party, because we regulate ourselves as reluctant voters. You may have to we may have to stick our necks out and give it a try. And I've spoken to some fellow voters more senior than me who was like, oh, I was part of Jesse Jackson's run for president. Oh, I was a part of one of Bernie Sanders' campaigns. I was an official worker for one of these two campaigns, and I was so demoralized, and so therefore I hate the Democrats. Politics is an endurance game. If you are going to wilt away after one or two campaign cycles, you need to get out. You need to stay out. Because let me remind you, if I'm remembering my history correct, Abraham Lincoln, he didn't win his first elections. He didn't win his first elections. My understanding that FDR ran on a VP ticket for someone else in the previous election and lost. I think it was a 28 election, if I'm correct. Let me verify that. Oh, I'm wrong. See, this is why you gotta verify stuff. See, this is why you gotta verify stuff. This is why you gotta verify stuff. Right, he tried to get in onto the 1920 presidential ticket. Oh, he did. Okay. 1920. Right, he ran 1920 as a VP and lost. 404 electoral votes to 127. 16 million versus 9 million. Almost an just shy north of a 7 million vote difference. He came back 12 years later and just racked up wins. You can't give up. And I hate to say this because we all know the legacy he has, but he is responsible for the EPA. Nixon ran in 1960 and lost. Ran again 8 years, became a 2-term president, even though he did not serve the entire 2 terms because he was crooked as a mess, and we had more backbone about pushing out our crooked leaders back in those days. Another part of the reason why we're having such pushback, having such a hard time right now among progressives and SOC Dems, is because the moderates have been treating us very lightly, very softly for so long that we don't know how to deal with criticism. We don't know how to deal with criticism. When your default term is to call me racist, call me a genocider, call me an evil person, among other things, that's your reaction? Because I think what it is you're afraid of being wrong. You are afraid of being wrong. And what you have to realize, another thing, this may be a big digression. I apologize if it is. You have to realize that a political faction's power within a political party is its ability to get politicians elected. Full stop. Full stop. Full stop. That's it. That's the key. That's the key. There's a saying about Republicans being locked up. Basically, Republicans look for reasons to vote for the person, and Democrats look for the reasons to not vote for the person. We got a no truth constant problem over here. And so what you have to realize is the reason why AOC has had so much trouble with moving up within the party after the election is because her power was tied to progressives and SOC Dems and leftists getting Democrats into power. But not only did we fail to keep Democrats in power, let alone get them into power, but we crashed it for Trump of all people. You may say, oh, I didn't do this for Trump. I'm not a Trump supporter. But he was the other choice. He was the default. He was the other choice. If this person didn't go through, it was going to be this person. It was not going to be Jill Stein. In no timeline was it going to be Jill Stein. She does not do the work. The Green Party does not do the work. They don't do the work. It has to be grassroots. It has to be a swell up in order for a party, especially a very weak one, to get up, to move up. I'm more pissed at the fact that a section of us deluded ourselves into thinking voting for her again was a great idea. I thought we got over that in 2016. One thing Democrats are going to need to stop doing is stop with the morale. Stop going with the morality angle. Republicans tried that in the 1990s, in 2000. And they got defeated in the midterm elections, and they barely won in 2000, running as the morality candidate. To this day, the 2000 election is highly contested. It's probably the most contested election, among historians and politicos out there right now for American politics. What the Democrat Party needs, it needs, let me put it like this. Let me reframe it like this. Republicans had, I believe it was a new contract, if I'm correct. Let me make sure. I'm having a brain fart. I'm already brain farting. I'm brain farting. Yeah, contract with America. That's what it had on the Newt Gingrich. That's how they broke the Democratic hold in the House. Because people don't realize that Democrats had like I think either a decade or a decade plus hold of the House. You know, in spite of Nixon winning and all that stuff, we had a hold in the House. Democrats, we had the Great Deal, the New Deal, the Great Deal, the Fair Deal. I want to say the Great Society. Johnson's Great Society. That's what Biden needed to do. He needed to consolidate his policies on something that people can just, when they want to talk about a range of policy stances that he is going to he wanted to undertake, you just say, I'm voting for this, whatever it would have been, whatever they would have came up with in 2020 or 2024, and that's what Kamala needed, and that's what Democrats need. If Democrats want to do a blowout midterm 2026 election and get back into the White House in 2028, we need that type of advertising, that type of branding. New Deal, Fair Deal, Great Society, contract with America, Project 2025. Though in this case, Project 2025 was anti-branding because people didn't believe that's what Trump's agenda was going to be. It was the anti-branding. They was like, oh, there's no way he's going to try to push all that. The reason why Trump is doing so much now compared to what he did in 2016, because he did not have the experience of actually, working in government, of being president, right? And so what he did was, he and the people around him they did their homework, sat down and came up with an agenda, wrote down, they studied Biden and all his tactics and how he got stuff done, and just did their what you call it, Walmart version. I don't want to say Dollar Tree, because I'm understanding Dollar Tree is keeping up its DEI and policy, so I don't want to lump them with Trump. But Walmart brand version of that. Right? That's what we need. We need to have basically take all the policies that we want to put together, and we need to make it easily, digestible for Americans. Because Kamala had her policies out in the campaign, right? I had to send the links to people who are by default Democrat voters. It's like, I don't know what her policies are, and then I sent it to them, and then they did whatever they were going to do. We can no longer just put up a website and expect that to be it, because as it currently stands, that's too hard for the left. That's too hard for voters right now. That's too hard for us to actually go and search. They actually have to go do a search right now on the internet. The great information age, we refuse to get that information. Use the information at our fingertips. And let's not go there. I'm just digressing. At this point, I'm just mumbling. Whew. You can see I had a lot on my let me see before I sign off. That's anything I want to talk about. But yeah, we need to organize. Like I say, we need to organize like the moderates. We need better organizing. I can't believe that there is no progressive caucus, officially no progressive caucus in the biggest city in Florida. In a city that goes back and forth. A city that goes back and forth. A purple city, a purple city in a sea of red. The only at this point, the only city that's just straight up blue is Tallahassee, and that's because it's a college town, and they, as a community, are under no delusions because they got to deal with DeSantis directly on a day-to-day basis, so they know what it is. But like I say, I'm gonna say it again: join the Democratic Party, attend the meetings, go to the city council meetings. Look into state ballot initiatives, and potentially run for government. Run for government yourself. You may be the candidate we need. You're looking for Superman, and you are Clark Kent. You just need to take off the glasses, and don't give up if you don't get it this time around. Politics is an endurance game. They want you to give up, because they're not going to give up. They're not going to give up because let me put it like this: we had the chance to take over the Democratic Party, and then we dropped the ball in 2024. And another thing I want to say this, as a part of progressives needing to mature in general, when we run for office, whether as a new candidate or as an incumbent, whether it's the primaries or it's the actual general election, and we lose, please do not run to conspiracy theories. Sometimes the voters say no. I'm going to say this again. Sometimes the voters just say no. I had a high school history teacher tell me, and I know this is maybe a weird jump. He's like, God listens. Sometimes he just say no. Guess what? The voters listen. They sometimes say no. Not every loss on our side is because Democrats got together and or moderates got together and they conspired against us. Sometimes they just run a better campaign for their value, for their views and values. Sometimes their messages resonate better with voters. Think about that. Let's not default to conspiracy theory. You lose me when I go into these conversations and the Democrat was against Bernie. The blah 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 blah. You guess who else was against the candidate? Y'all seem to forget that the Republican Party, before becoming Trump stooges, they fought him tooth and nail. In 2016, they didn't want him in there, but he got through. Now the party is in a new era. The era of Reagan, the era of we gone from with Reagan, which I like to call grandfather conservatism, which is a knife in the hand, in one hand, some Jack Daniels or whatever, some whiskey or whatever, and in the other hand, a shotgun or a knife with a grandfatherly smile. We're going from that to the compassionate conservatism, which is we hear your issues, but we're going to do nothing about it, to fascism. I mean, I'm not gonna rename it. Fascism. That's what we've blown up into. All right, and we saw them morph before our eyes. All right, we got to do better. And what you need to stop doing also is stop coming for the black community. It gets very annoying when these groups or these specific organizers that are X group for Trump comes in mad about Trump's policies, and then they come in and get mad at the black community for stepping out. What more can we do? We are not the plurality. We are not the majority. We're the by population. We're the number 3 ethnic group. You don't realize by number, by grouping, the Latin community, the Hispanic community has more raw power than us. If anything, we should be begging you for help. But I understand there's a difference between Mexicans and Hondurans and all that other stuff. But I can tell you right now, as people are learning, the Trump administration ain't saying no difference. Y'all all the same. You are all the same. And in another interesting point, maybe I'm just digressing a bit too much, reaching too much with this. But it is my understanding that under Democrat presidents, we deport more people under Democratic administrations than we do under conservative. If you care about if your focus is all about the border and all the other stuff, you'd be voting Democrat. If you really cared about, okay, I want to move sections of people out of the country, vote Democrat. The reason why the deportation policies of Trump is receiving so much attention is because of the way he's handling it. He's just going after everybody. I think I saw something about people from white countries, from European countries, are getting deported or getting their green card denied under this administration. He's just, unless you're famous, like Prince Harry, you're vulnerable. That's why I say you need to look into the actual policies. You need to look into who is it more effective under. Let me give you another example, and this is why there are corporate interests in the Democratic Party, and this is a personal experience of mine. So I went through basically under Trump, under his first term, I lost almost half the value of my investments in the stock market. Under Biden, I beat the market. Whether it's moderate, progressive, sock them, they are good for money. They are good for money. And let's also talk about what I think is the game plan is with everything. Why is he trying to gut the government in the way he does? I think it goes back to his first term. In his first term, when he went through the budget negotiations, he realized that the vast majority of the government spending is automatic. It's salaries, it's paying the bills, it's contracts, it's the programs, right? So I think what his strategy is, he's gonna just get rid of all these programs, cut all these workers, right? And then when he goes to the House and the Senate, and he's like, look, I got rid of all these programs, I got rid of all of these workers, right? I got all these departments. We now have a budget surplus because I don't got to pay those people anymore. I don't have to pay out those contracts. I don't have to pay out those programs anymore. And what he's going to do at the same time, and I think it's going to be a twofold thing. First thing he's going to do is say, well, however I save this money, we're going to cut our revenue we're going to cut our taxes by that amount, right? So what he's essentially going to do is he's going to make those cuts permanent by just straight up getting Republicans to vote for, the surplus difference. And then I think he's going to take the surplus that's already there, and I think he's going to do two things. He's going to do that American Sovereign program, the one he's proposing so he can buy TikTok. I think he's going to put the money there, and then I think he's going to continue projects that directly benefit Elon Musk and Amazon and all these corpos that have come out in support of him. Right? He's going to create the programs that are going to seem like, oh, they're for everybody, right? But you're going to find that essentially, if you're not on the donor list, it's a coin toss, right? You're rolling the dice, and 5 of the faces on each dice is snake eyes. So I think what we're about to see is one of the greatest heist I have ever in history of this nation, if not the world. They're about to raid. So that's why I think they're cutting all of this stuff. Right? It doesn't matter if we actually need it. It doesn't matter if it hurts the supporters. It's gone. It needs to be going. Right? And he's gonna have a go at it. Now, what possibly could happen next after the taxpayers get raided and the government gets blown up? I think what may end up happening is that Republicans are no longer going to have a trifecta in the House and the Senate. Now, will the Democrats get both houses? I mean, get both chambers, get House and the Senate. It's going to be up to the Democrats. And I think 2 things are going to happen. 1 or 2 things are going to happen. We get a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate. I have to check what the map in 2026 looks like. See if there's enough seats in general. Just in general. You know, you could cut the whole, oh, this is a red state. If the seat, to put it like this, if the seat is open for grabs, go for it. One thing we should have kept from Obama was the whole 50 state the 50 state campaign. That's how he got his 60 votes in the Senate for our brief time he had it. Right? That's how he did a 50 state campaign. We need to be doing a 50 state campaign every 2 years, not just presidential time, not just when it's an inspirational candidate. We need to be running a 50 state campaign going forward. 50 state campaign going forward. All right. Anyway, back to what I was saying. If Democrats get the majority in the House and 60 seats in the Senate, he's going to get impeached and removed. And then we're going to have, what's his name? Vance. And Vance is going to move slightly to the left. Or he's going to be a quiet president. He's not going to be all blustering and all the other stuff. And what's going to end up happening is when 2028 comes around, he's going to say, well, I'm not Trump. Or he's going to say, well, we need to move on going forward. We didn't move on from Trump. He's gone. He's removed going forward. And you're going to have voters who are going to eat that up. Or, if the Democrats can't deliver, they may have to, hold on. See, this is why I don't do a lot of political content. I want to say it's the 26th Amendment. Hold on. I want to make sure. Was it the 23rd? I just want to make sure. Nope. 23. I keep saying, I don't know why I keep thinking 23rd. Hold on. I don't know why my mind. I want to say 25th. Let me make sure. I want to believe it's the 25th Amendment. He's going to get 25th. They're going to say he's, unfit to lead or whatever. He's going to get 25th. And they're going to do it that way. 25th for impeachment. And I said, if we have power, and I'm going to say it like this: if we end up with the power in 2026 to impeach and remove Trump in 2026 and 2020 after the 2026 midterm elections, we need to get Vance down there too at the same time. Run both of their impeachments. Run both of their impeachments and removals. Nah, you are not finna get a promotion, instant promotion. You are not finna get an instant promotion. No, sir. And that's if we get the majorities we need in Congress. That's if we get the majorities we need in Congress. We gotta keep it going. Let me think. Is there anything else I want to say? I know I said a lot. Don't want to leave it left unsaid. It was in my thought process that I went and mixed up my 23rd and 25th amendments. But yeah, it's gonna be either 25th or it's going to be impeachment and removal, or it might just be the third option, right? They might just throw a wrench, right? They might just throw a wrench in here. They might just, like they did Obama. Just refuse to let the government operate until he gets out of there. I think that's it for now. I know I'm missing something. Oh, here's my prediction for 2028, regardless if Trump gets removed or not. Before then, I think the Republican ticket for 2028 is going to be a combination of one of three: Vance, one of the billionaires or rich folk, or a member of the Trump family. It's going to be one of those three in 2028, because they realize, okay, Trump has 2 terms. How are they going to keep up the Trump magic? How are they going to, use him to keep power? And what's the best way, since he's term limited? Use his children. Use his son. Use his daughter. That would be interesting if that's how they try to secure the women vote in 2028, by running one of his daughters as either the VP or as the president. Well, it's probably going to be VP. It's probably going to be VP. We talk about how we don't like legacies. We don't like political legacies, with their good political legacies or bad political legacies on the federal level. But we just saw the birth of one. Make no mistake, regardless if Trump gets removed in 2026, or well, it technically will be 2027, if I'm correct, how the elections work, the seating. Whether he gets ejected halfway through, or he bops out at the end of his second term, we have not seen the last of the Trump family. I'm gonna tell you, all it takes is for one of your family members to become president to really launch a political dynasty. Look into the Tafts, right? 1-term president, but his family, on a state level. That's all I can think of right now. I'm sure as soon as I hit the recording, I'm going to forget everything and all that. I'm going to remember something. Brain fog. It's like 6 a.m. for me right now, and then in like 7 hours, I got to meet with my SBA person, which is ironic because maybe I'm going to dox them. I'm not gonna. I'll talk about that later if I ever decide to talk about that. What are your thoughts, such and such? I just I waited so long because I wanted to see how things were going to pan out. Was it going to be the quiet chaos of 2016, or was he just going to basically hit us with a pickup truck? And we got hit with a pickup truck. We got hit with multiple pickup trucks. It's only 3 weeks into his presidency, and it feels like years. It feels like years. But like I said earlier, if there's anything that you're going to take away from this long rant, take the reins yourself. Run for office. Go to these party meetings. Because as of right now, progressives, sock dems, we're the bull moose party, and we don't even realize it. We're the bull moose party, and we don't even realize it. And that does not bode good for America long term. For America. Because after America, after, well, I'll let you pick up a history book about the vices of the 1920s, about the vices of the 1980s. We got to take one page from the moderates. We need to become technocratic progressives. We've got to do more than just spew out a good game. We got to do more than that. We got to do more than just yap online like I'm doing right now. You got to do just more than that. Just like I've joined the party. Right now, I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. I am as of right now. I am a let me make sure I get my position. You can tell I'm tired. I am a precinct committee person for my area. I understand it might be an uphill battle. I may move up very fast. I may move at a snail's pace. Who knows? But I gotta keep pushing. It's an endurance game. That's one thing life has taught me is an endurance game. If you have to get things you want, you gotta be able to push through. Oh, now I remember what I was forgetting to tell. So, part of the strategy for Vance is that he's going to try to sane wash himself, right? He's, like I said earlier, he's going to try to say, I'm not Trump, or we need to move past Trump or whatever. So what I'm thinking of doing after this is creating either a Word document or something that's publicly editable. I'm feared of my fear of making it available for anybody to edit is that someone can come in and just delete everything. From somebody from the Republican Party can come over and just delete everything. So what I may do is I may just put down an email that you can email like, hey, this is what Mike Pence. I said Mike Pence. I keep getting. That's just how much little presence Vance has had that it's hard. Sometimes it's hard for me to tell the difference between Mike Pence and J.D. Vance in terms of presence. They have no aura. Like, how do you have, I don't want to go there, but like, how do you have built-in eyeliner and you have no aura? How do you, come on now. How does that happen? How does that happen? But like I say, because I'm not going to just stop that. It's going to be a group. It's going to take a group effort. I'm going to try my best. All right. I'm going to at least once a week try to find something that J.D. Vance has did. And then what's going to happen, and then what I want to happen is when, whether it's 2026 or it's 2028 and he's running for president in 2028 or he is sent to office the president because Trump somehow got removed before his term completed. I want to be able to keep, when people try to sandwash him as not Trump, I'm like, well, here's the things he did and said. All right. The first thing I got of him so far is him calling for the ex-Dodge employee to be rehired after his racist tirade got exposed. All right. Because that to me tells me a lot about your character. Among all the things for you to come out of the woodwork for, it's that. Keep it up, though. Because some of us are watching, some of us are listening. And we're going to document it. So, I have a business email or, an email attached to this account. You can pull it up on, let me see. It should be, I don't think I have an email. I may have to add an email for you to be able to email. I'm probably going to put it in the video description of an email that you can push this towards. So that if you catch an article of JD Vance doing something or saying something out of pocket, we can keep a documented thing. We can keep it documented. So that when he tries to come out and say, oh, he isn't this, and that, yes, you are. Yes, you are. Remember, there are 52 weeks in a year. I can probably go back, from week 1 of this year and go from there. Other things he did or didn't do. Didn't say. And here's another thing I want to say. I know I'm just pushing this along. You're like, when is the man going to stop talking? Nah, I'm not going to go there. It's too much of a digression. So I want to put it in. It's going to be in the video description. Maybe I'll put it in as part of the links on my YouTube channel. But if you have anything, if you have a what has JD Vance done type thing, email it to there. If you for some reason you can't email me, the email doesn't work for you, you can shoot me a message on my DeviantArt, my TikTok. That's all my Linktree link that I have. And what I may do is I may go ahead and add an email link to the Linktree. That way I ain't gotta sit there and constantly, because I removed the email because I got tired of the scam emails. Send me a message to the DeviantArt, TikTok, I don't know how ArtStation does it with the private messages. Never got one there. And you can shoot me a message through Blue Sky. That's probably going to be Blue Sky is probably going to be the quickest way to get my attention. But I'm going to go ahead and add an email link to the Linktree. So, like I say, let's get it together. Let's turn the blue wave into a blue hurricane and tear up conservatives by the roots. Figure speaking. Oh yeah, I remember. Before we go, one last story. Something that happened this week. So I went to a job fair, right? And 90% of the job creators, the hirers, had dropped out because apparently the Trump administration has been going around just canceling contracts and canceling funding. So when I went to the job fair, there were only 3 companies left, and they were all for sales position. All for sales positions. All right. That's crazy. Like, you are purposely inducing a recession. We're heading into a recession. Now, whether or not it turns into a Great Recession or a Great Depression, to me, a recession and a Great Depression are like the same thing, in my opinion. It's just, like I'm saying, again, branding. Like, that's crazy. Like, I'm going to another job fair. Hopefully that one fair is better. But that's crazy. That's crazy.